Thank you so much, Chang. Hi, hello everyone. How are you? It's good to connect with you virtually online. And I want to just begin by wishing you well during this crisis that we have. And I want to just take a few minutes, just even before my presentation today, and just acknowledge that we are in a time of kind of national crisis, health crisis, and none of this we have all ever seen in our lifetime. And I think there's going to be impact for your planning of your program. So I just want to just mention about that. And some of you have already made decisions in the thinking process in your organization, how this coronavirus crisis is going to affect your internship program. So I just want to mention a few things, share with you a little bit of the thinking process. I think the optimistic projections and hope, I guess, more than projections, is that the peak will be maybe in 3 weeks, maybe, and that recovery, so you have to start with some kind of assumption how long it would take to recover. Most people say the most optimistic scenario is like 3 months, right? So 3 months, we're already in March. And that takes us right into when most people start their internship in June. And so when we recover, that's the most optimistic. It will still continue to have an impact. So for instance, the college that we're in California, and also the governor is weighing whether there's going to be summer class or not, right? At Poly, we will be shifting our summer program. We have a youth program. We don't have a public internship program like yours, but we do have a youth leadership program, and we have our own internship program. And we are planning to shift that all on an online basis. And if we don't need it, it could be a hybrid, that's great. We can do fully non-hybrid, face-to-face, that's even better. But we are incorporating that into our assumptions. And it's easier to switch from online back to face-to-face than the other way around last minute. So for you, in your thinking process, I'm sure you're thinking about these things. What about your government partners, right? Will they even have placements for you? Right now, they can't really think about that. In a few weeks, they may be able to speak a little bit more confidently about that, right? Your organization, how would this impact your applications? So, for instance, one of our speakers today, they have finished the application process. They're in the process of sending out acceptance to the students. They may have to couch it in more tentative language to say that, hey, if we get these internship placements, if things go well, we will continue. But have some language that gives you some flexibility and let other people know too. The good thing is everybody is everything is up in the air, and so people expect that too. So what's your organization's decision in terms of how to move forward? There are many ways to move forward. It can range from, okay, I think the first decision is maybe after an analysis, should you move forward or not? And some might say that, okay, we're gonna not do it this year. We're gonna, start thinking and planning for next year. Other people say, I think we can still go forward. Maybe it needs to be a different program, a scaled down program, maybe, and maybe it needs to be online. And so different people will, depending on your local situations, different places will have completely different situations for you to make your right organizational decisions about your programming this year. Implementation, I would say that I just shared my experience with you. All our implementations for this year. This is unfortunately the silver lining to this crisis. It's a good time to experiment with online engagement. So my recommendation to you is try out online engagement. Come up with a plan for it. You can have online engagement for securing placements instead of meeting face-to-face with government agencies to renew the placement. You can suggest to them, can we Zoom, right? Can we just meet virtually? I'm sure they would, more than welcome. Perhaps, in a few weeks when things calm down a little bit, right? And you can connect with them more often like that. It's easier actually to engage online. It's much easier to say, yeah, I'm going to give you 30 minutes to do it online from my home or whatever. So intern application online, you can do a lot of your training online too. Just do webinars like ours, and it actually gives you more flexibility in training. So and then when you implement the program, different parts of the program can be implemented online too. Maybe depending as needed, students can do some things online. Hopefully by summer, they can be face-to-face in the office and do things, but you can always check in and do things, survey them online, and even fundraising and even your recognition can be all online. So think about all those possibilities. So I'm going to go ahead and start my presentation now. Hopefully that comment just now helps you think a little bit through this as we move forward in a realistic way. So next slide is going to be the internship. So for today, I think, after I speak, we will have 2 more program sharings, then other sharings by other programs, some Q&A, and then closing. I understand that as of now, CLUSA is committed to the funding. As long as you want to do it this year, they're committed to the funding, as I understand it. But regardless, at the end of the program, Anthony Lay is going to be coming on to speak with you at the closing. And so you definitely want to hear what he has to say. Next slide. So outcomes, right? What are the webinar outcomes? So these are the outcomes that I've put together. Hopefully after today, in terms of community engagement, you get some information, first of all, about what kind of community engagements we are talking about or thinking about. And you will, through this, get some ideas, like what is your next step for your organization in terms of community engagement. And so we are all in a process. And our challenge is that each of us, some of us are just starting off, some of us been doing this for a long time. You have to ask, what is your next step in terms of community engagement and what can you do? And thirdly, through the sharing, I hope that you will hear from others and be inspired to make your community engagement more impactful, right? So in the end, we're not just doing this to go through the motions. We need to have outcomes. We need to have ideas of what do we want to get out of this. The program was designed twofold. One, in empowering students and giving them a look at public service through government, right? And the other side of it was to use this internship organizing experience to galvanize your community so that your community can take increasing steps in terms of civic engagement yourself, right? And become more empowered. And so that is a big task. We know that, but we want to put that on the agenda sheet and just to see how far you can go each year. right? Okay, next slide. So I'm going to talk about 4 areas, just very briefly, about community engagement. First area is placement uh, in public officials' office, government agencies of various levels, and how to do that. What are we looking for? Some ideas related to it. Second area is internship recruitment and the application process, especially recruiting college students. Third, organizing the community graduation event. How do you close this experience? How do you recognize everybody, including yourselves, for this as a community, undertaking? How do you leverage this? And then number 4, how do you galvanize the community to fundraise and to promote civic engagement? Okay, so I'll talk briefly about each area and just throw out some ideas. It's not meant to be exhaustive, but hopefully it will give you some ideas. So first, internship placement from public officials or government agencies. So this is the focus of your grant, right? This grant is to give students, young people, a chance to interact with government, right? So that would be whether it be public officials, more likely they're public official offices, and government agencies, right? At different levels. It could be City Hall. It could be county agencies. It could be state, federal representatives' office, and many of you already have experience there. So I would just say that this is a continuing process in terms of placement. It keeps repeating itself every year as a cycle, right? And so the key thing I would say is relationship building for securing placement is a continuing process. So the key is securing these placements based on track record and based on trust and based on relationship. And luckily, being Asian Americans, we know a few things about the importance of relationship, especially long-term relationship that we could build on. And that is an area that we can be very strong in, right? And so I would, mention these parts of the process. First is identification. Identify positions based on quality. So what are the government agencies? Go online, brainstorm, look at the different agencies, and begin to look at which ones do you will be the most feasible. So I would suggest 2 things, that you look at feasibility. So for instance, if you're starting out this year and you're just beginning to ask for positions, so the higher up positions, the federal, they all take a lot more time and connection. That may make it less feasible, right? Quality is very important. Some of you ask and say that, hey, when our students, we've spent so much effort placing our students. We want them to learn something. We don't want them to go into the office and staple things, right? We don't want them to go into the office and just do office work. That is not very motivating, and that is not. So you want to kind of think about what are some outcomes that you think students will help them, right? Obviously, exposure to constituents, exposure to policy, exposure to research opportunities, exposure to interacting in a professional setting, in a government setting. All those are important, and you want to kind of, as you move along, you're looking at them as they are looking at you. They're going to try to look and see if they should take a chance and give your student a chance, because your students become their face, right? They're representing them. And so it's a big decision on their part, but you're also checking them out to say, hey, are you going to give our students a quality experience. After this experience, will they like government, appreciate government more, or would they hate government, right? So those are important. Related to this, you want to identify who are the decision makers, right? The top decision maker, and then the ones that help them make the decision. Sometimes it's the chief of staff, sometimes it's the internship director, who probably does many other jobs. You just want to identify who has the information, who can make the decisions. And then the second step would be to be introduced to them. So you want to make a good introduction, right? You want to see in your community who has champions, who might you leverage on, who knows these people to get you a good meeting, a helpful meeting, right? You want to actually do some background, as much background work as you can. You want to scope them out, really know them quite a bit, and then before you access them, and when you access them, you can either build on your track record, right, and let them know quickly who you are, what you do, right, in a short way, in a key way, talking only about things that they really matters to them. You know, they have a checklist, right, of things that they care about. So you should talk about things that they care about, right? Once you get connected to them, this would be the first step, right? Understand what the agency needs. What do they need? They need some interns, but they're worried whether they would represent them well, right? That's their needs. They have an operating culture. They do things a certain way. They need the interns to be part of their program, They have a certain perspective. So you need to know all that so that you can give them that assurance that you understand them, you will keep communication, and that your students will be great workers for them, great interns for them, right? Then you're ready to negotiate, and you want to talk about what would be the arrangements, what would they do to supervise, what tasks would they give, what task would you suggest? Would they be doing some research? Would they do constituent contact? Would they get training in the office? You can ask and negotiate with each other on behalf of your interns so that you have the best outcomes for the interns, the best outcomes for their office, and best outcomes for your organization. Through all this, you develop trust, right? They go back and they said, wow, these people are really good. They send us great interns. Their people are really together. We want them back next year, right? So that's the trust, right? With both the organizer, the interns, and then your whole process, that these people are really on top of it. They really understand this. They really understand our needs, right? And do you have good feedback system? Do you check in with them before, during? How are interns doing? You know, you can do an online Zoom check-in, 30 minutes. It's probably more than adequate, maybe even 15 minutes, right? If there are problems, ask them to let you know early so that you could take decisive corrective action or decisive action period, right? And then you go through the process again, right? Maintain the relationship, build on your track record, talk about next year before next year comes, and then before next year start to do this. I understand a lot of programs have been doing this, so this is nothing you don't know, but I just want to put it together and just say that this is a process that continually you get better and better. The second part is internship recruitment. So the focus should be recruiting college students, although in some programs they also recruit high school, probably juniors and seniors. The key is maturity level. The key is that they understand they are up to the task. You don't want to send somebody in that is underprepared, not mature, because the result cannot be good, right? And next year you wouldn't have. People don't really want you back. And the community doesn't look good, your organization doesn't. And so the reason for that is maturity level. And also, college students tend to know a little bit more what they want to do. So for sure, And then you should do these outreach, probably online. This is a process and you will get better. Who are the professors in your local colleges that you can get to know and would at least send out, right, the announcement? Who would they nominate? So at Poly, our system, we use lots and lots of people to nominate people, right? We ask them to send us the best, right? And nominating can be from college groups, student groups themselves, community organizations, parents, university students, your intern alumni, that can be a great source of other people that think that they could really benefit from it. For your online training, you should look into a zoom.com sort of professional level. It's very inexpensive, maybe $20 a month. And that would give you lots of webinar breakout room possibilities during this period. And then make sure your calendar takes into account of the kind of crisis that we are in right now. So thirdly, let's go to organizing for the graduation, right? So any activity, it's good to have a closure, right? So it's best if you first define your outcomes. Why do you want to do this event, right? You want to celebrate the graduates. You want to recognize the government agencies. You want to recognize your donors. You want to recognize your own hard work, the community support. You want to give visibility to your community, right? And so that's all very good. And you might have other reasons, right? My suggestion, especially for this year, is to keep it simple, keep it cheap, right? Maybe if people can, this might be in August maybe, and by that time, people can ask a government agency to host it for free, your venue host. And all you need is some punch, some refreshment, right? To keep it simple so that you can do this every year without feeling that it's such a big burden, right? And then you can have a simple agenda. Just go through and celebrate everybody. Give the certificates to the students, recognize the different agencies, your donors, and keep this program really simple. Give people a chance to mingle and just bring it to a nice close. It's very doable, it should be, and it's also gives you a chance to connect up talking about next year, right? You're talking about, things like that. So it's a piece of your community activity that I hope that you can do with, by keeping it simple, it should be quite doable. So lastly, I want to talk a little bit about galvanizing community for fundraising and promoting civic engagement, right? So this is probably the hardest part, right? But if you think about it, for your program to have sustainability, you can't rely on CLUSA funding forever, right? So you need to start thinking about that. And many of you already do fundraising, right? So the steps are very classical, right? Form a fundraising committee. It can't be just the two leaders, right? Maybe somebody else takes on that, right? Establish a fundraising goal. How much do you have from what source this year? CLUSA is going to give you some money. I think they have some matching requirements, right? You might have some other sources that you have already. And then the rest of it is just like any grassroots groups. You start off with a list. You list every one of your core members on that list, right? All your core people, right? You put all their names into it, right? Then you list not so core members, right? Then you list all the potential donors, all the core members, brainstorm potential donors, right? Then you establish an amount for each person, right? And pick some, I guess, I don't know what's the right word, fundraising maturity, right? Which is to say, okay, to be realistic, we'll ask so-and-so or $100. That should be okay. And if they sound really enthusiastic, we can ask a little bit more. What would be your stretch ask? What would be your realistic ask? And so on, right? You start off with a list of people, you put a number onto it, and then you decide and you divide up on your committee who's going to do the ask. And people will go, I'm going to ask so and so and so, and by the way, I am good for some such and such, right? I'm going to go a stretch and go ask our business. Right now is a hard time to ask business, most of the business. And corporate business is always difficult. So you have to start very grassroots with the people, right? The parents of the people, alumni, people in their relatives, whoever, right? To put in. Can you help us with $100 or whatever, right? And then have a way to feedback, right? And then what are the amounts? And then at the end, you have some way to recognize everyone. You can do recognition online. You can do all kinds of things. And I know people most likely don't like to ask for money, but I really don't know how things get done without doing this. So I think we all can do this. If you think about doing it, you can do it. And I look forward to other people sharing their experiences. Okay, my time is up. Thank you.